Michael Harassing, 42 years old, restaurant empire owner, $60 million in revenue, 15 luxury restaurants across America, 2,000 employees. But he'd never actually visited his restaurants. Only knew them through reports, balance sheets, numbers. That November night, tired of endless meetings, he decided to do something unprecedented. Enter his most exclusive restaurant, the Royal Palace, New York City, INCOGNITO. No warning. He wanted to see how it really worked. He entered. Dim lights, elegant atmosphere, Michelin-starred excellence. Then he saw her. Behind the bar, young waitress, 24 maybe, serving Dom Pérignon champagne, $3,500 a bottle, to clients who didn't even notice her. But Michael noticed. She had red eyes, moist, like she was holding back tears. Her hands trembled. Serving champagne to clients, laughing about expensive vacations. The clients didn't care. They never noticed. But Michael saw. This girl was suffering, crying silently, while serving luxury to people who treated her like furniture. He ordered a Negroni. Watched her. For an hour. What he saw shocked him. His golden empire, built on exploitation. Real people with real problems. Maintaining luxury illusion for clients who didn't deserve it. He couldn't sleep that night. One question haunted him. What was happening to Emily? Which city are you watching this video from and what time is it? By the way, if you're enjoying my videos, I'd be so happy if you could subscribe to my channel and like this video. Michael Harassing had never stepped into his restaurants unannounced. At 42 years old, the restaurant empire he had built was worth $60 million. But he knew his establishments only through reports and balance sheets. That November night, tired of endless meetings, he decided to enter the Royal Palace, his most exclusive restaurant in New York City, INCOGNITO. What he found left him speechless. Behind the bar, a young waitress was crying silently while serving $3,500 champagne to clients who didn't even notice her. Emily Bennett, 24 years old, had red eyes and trembling hands, but continued working with a dignity that hit Michael straight in the heart. When he discovered why this girl was crying, and what was really happening in his most prestigious restaurant, his life as a millionaire but distant CEO was shattered by a revelation that would forever change his way of seeing the world of work and humanity. Michael Harassing contemplated the quarterly balance sheet numbers from the 30th floor of the Harassing Group skyscraper in the heart of Manhattan. $60 million in revenue, 15 luxury restaurants across America, 2,000 employees. On paper, everything was working perfectly. But that afternoon, watching rain against his office windows, he felt more distant than ever from the reality of his company. At 42 years old, he had built his empire from zero. Son of a small restaurant owner from Nashville, he had studied business at Wharton and transformed the family diner into a chain of exclusive establishments frequented by celebrities, politicians, and businessmen. The Royal Palace in New York City was his most prestigious creation, a Michelin-starred restaurant in the Upper East Side, where a dinner for two could cost more than a median salary. Success had a price. Michael didn't remember the last time he had spoken directly with a waiter, a chef, or a sommelier. His day consisted of meetings with general managers, video conferences with investors, decisions made on Excel spreadsheets, never seeing the people behind those numbers. That afternoon, after another meeting about expansion strategies, Michael felt an inexplicable tightness in his chest. Instead of returning to his mansion in Greenwich, he decided to do something unprecedented. Enter one of his restaurants without warning, dressed as a normal client. He changed from his $2,500 suit to a more sober one, took off his Patek Philippe watch, and headed toward the Royal Palace. He wanted to see with his own eyes how the establishment that represented the excellence of his brand really worked. The restaurant was splendid from outside. Dim lights, elegant windows, exclusive atmosphere. Michael entered pretending to be a client, observing every detail with eyes different from those of the owner. That's when he saw her. Behind the bar, a girl about 24 years old was serving Dom Pérignon champagne to a couple of clients. She had brown hair pulled back in a perfect bun, the impeccable uniform of the establishment, and moved with professional grace among bottles that cost more than her monthly salary. But something wasn't right. Michael immediately noticed the girl had red, moist eyes, as if she were holding back tears. Her hands trembled slightly while serving the champagne, and from time to time she turned to discreetly dry her eyes. The clients didn't seem to notice anything. They laughed, toasted, talked about business and expensive vacations. But Michael, who had learned to read people in years of business, clearly saw that this girl was suffering. He approached the bar and ordered a Negroni, observing her closely. On her name tag it said Emily. She was beautiful in a natural way, without excessive makeup or arrogant attitudes. There was something authentic about her, a fragility that contrasted with the golden environment surrounding her. While Emily prepared the cocktail with trembling hands, Michael heard a conversation at the next table. Two men in suits were talking about her in derogatory tones, commenting that she seemed about to cry and defining waitresses as mere decorations. Michael felt his blood boil. These were exactly the type of clients who frequented his restaurants, rich, arrogant, treating staff like objects. But he had never really thought about what it must be like to work for people like this every night. Emily brought him the Negroni with a professional smile that couldn't hide the sadness. Michael thanked her kindly and noticed she seemed surprised by the courtesy. Evidently, she wasn't used to clients who treated her like a person. Michael remained at the bar for an hour, observing. What he saw shocked him. Emily was treated like an object by most clients. Shouted orders, constant criticism, sexist comments. And yet, she kept smiling, serving, maintaining the composure the establishment demanded. When he finally decided to leave, Michael knew he would never be the same. He had seen the hidden side of his golden empire. Real people with real problems who worked hard to maintain the illusion of luxury for clients who often didn't even deserve their service. Driving home, a single question hammered in his head. What was happening to Emily? And above all, how many others like her were working in his restaurants without him realizing it? Michael couldn't sleep that night. The image of Emily crying silently while serving champagne to indifferent clients wouldn't leave him. The next morning, instead of going directly to the office, he decided to personally investigate the lives of his employees. He called the general manager of the Royal Palace, Marcus Ferrell, a 50-year-old man who had managed the establishment with an iron fist for 5 years. Michael didn't reveal he had been at the restaurant, but asked for information about the staff, discreetly concentrating on Emily. Ferrell spoke of her in bureaucratic terms. She was a good employee, punctual, professional. She had started 2 years before as a table waitress, then was promoted to the bar for her skills, a human resource like so many others. But Michael wanted to know more. That night he returned to the Royal Palace, observing Emily with even more attention. He noticed details that had escaped him the night before. A small scar on her left hand, comfortable but worn shoes under the elegant uniform, worried glances toward the clock. During her break, Michael saw her go out to the back patio for a phone call. Driven by inexplicable curiosity, he discreetly followed her. What he heard broke his heart. Emily was speaking with someone in a worried and loving tone, reassuring a grandmother about medicines taken and medical checkups. She promised visits on her day off. She lied, saying she worked in a beautiful place with kind people so as not to worry the elderly woman. Her voice broke when she spoke of necessary treatments, assuring that the money was available. When she went back inside, Emily had quickly recomposed herself, putting back on her professional smile like a mask. But Michael now knew what was hidden. A 24-year-old girl working in a hostile environment to pay for her grandmother's medical treatments. In the following days, Michael conducted a discreet investigation. Using private contacts, he discovered Emily Bennett's story. Born in Philadelphia, she had lost her parents in a car accident at 18. Since then, she lived with her 80-year-old grandmother, Grace, her only remaining family. 6 months before, her grandmother had received a cancer diagnosis. The treatments were expensive, and insurance covered only part of the costs. Emily had left college where she was studying literature and had moved to New York City to find a job that paid enough to sustain the therapies. The Royal Palace was the best-paying job she had managed to find. But the hours were exhausting, and the environment toxic. She worked 6 days a week, often until late hours, enduring rude clients and competitive colleagues. All to earn enough to pay for chemotherapies and medicines that cost thousands of dollars a month. Michael also discovered something else. Marcus Ferrell had a bad reputation among female staff. He used his power to harass waitresses, threatening dismissal to anyone who rebelled. Emily was one of his main victims, but she couldn't afford to lose the job. The night Michael had seen her crying, she had just learned that her grandmother's treatments weren't working as expected. She needed more expensive therapies at a private clinic, but her salary, though the best she had been able to get, wasn't enough. This revelation hit Michael like a punch. His chain of luxury restaurants, which he considered a symbol of excellence, hid stories of exploitation and suffering. Employees who worked in difficult conditions for insufficient salaries under the supervision of unscrupulous managers. But above all, there was Emily, an intelligent and sensitive girl who had sacrificed dreams and youth for love toward the only family she had left, and did it with a dignity that shamed all the rich and spoiled clients who frequented his establishments. Michael understood he could no longer limit himself to observing. He had to act. But how to help Emily without revealing his identity and without creating problems with Ferrell? The answer came when the next night he saw Ferrell approach Emily with the predatory expression he had learned to recognize. It was time to intervene. Michael arrived at the royal palace that night with a precise plan. He had decided the time had come to intervene directly. He could no longer limit himself to observing while Emily suffered before everyone's eyes. The restaurant was particularly full. New York City's exclusive clientele created that golden atmosphere Michael had always considered a success. But now, seeing everything through the eyes of someone who had to endure these clients every night, the scene seemed different to him. Emily was at the bar, elegant and professional as always. But Michael noticed every sign of stress. How she bit her lip when ignored, the startle when someone raised their voice, the sadness in moments of pause. Marcus Ferrell prowled around the establishment with his usual arrogance. Michael had always considered him efficient, but now he saw what he really was, a man who abused power to intimidate vulnerable employees. Around 10 p.m., Michael saw Ferrell approach Emily. The girl was organizing bottles when he positioned himself beside her, too close. Michael could clearly see the scene, Ferrell whispering in Emily's ear, her stiffening trying to move away, him retaining her. Emily's face was a mask of disgust and fear. Michael decided to break his incognito. He stood up and approached the bar with determined steps. His voice cut through the air with an authority that made both turn abruptly. Ferrell paled upon recognizing Michael Harrison. He had received no warning of the visit, and above all had been caught in a compromising situation. Michael looked at him with glacial coldness. Then he addressed Emily in a gentle and respectful tone, asking her to follow him to the director's office. She nodded, confused and worried, recognizing the Harrison surname. Are you enjoying this story? Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now let's continue with the video. In the upstairs office, Michael had Emily sit down, immediately reassuring her. She had no problems. On the contrary, it was he who should apologize to her. He told her everything. The nights spent incognito observing her, the investigations about her story, the discovery of Ferrell's harassment, the situation of the sick grandmother. Emily listened incredulously, alternating shame with relief. Michael confessed that she had opened his eyes to what was really happening in his restaurants. He had built his empire thinking only of numbers, without seeing the people who made it all possible. She had taught him that true success is measured in how people who work for the company are treated. The solution he proposed was radical. Immediate dismissal of Ferrell, promotion and raise for Emily, treatments paid for grandmother at the best private clinic. When Emily protested, Michael was inflexible. It wasn't charity, but justice. For the first time since he had known her, Emily smiled genuinely, a smile full of relief and gratitude. It was the beginning of a transformation that would change everything. In the following days, after Marcus Ferrell's dismissal, Michael initiated a true revolution in the way of managing his restaurants, with Emily as his most valuable consultant. The first thing he did was install his temporary office directly at the Royal Palace. The 30th floor of the Harrison Group skyscraper remained empty, while the most important CEO in American dining worked from a restaurant back room. Emily revealed herself as a natural manager. She knew every dynamic of the establishment, every staff problem, every detail that escaped official reports. She had lived the employees' difficulties and knew what needed to change. The first changes were immediate: more humane work hours, after discovering many waiters worked 12 hours without adequate breaks. 30% raise for all salaries that weren't enough even for a studio apartment rent in New York. Introduction of meetings where each employee could speak freely. The true revolution was cultural. From Emily's idea, Michael created small, elegant plaques for each employee, where next to the name something personal was written. Luis studies medicine in the afternoons. Maria has 2 children and paints on weekends. The results were surprising. Clients began to interact differently with staff, showing interest in the people serving them. The atmosphere became warmer, more human. Emily observed these changes with astonishment. Her grandmother now received the best treatments and was responding well to therapies, while the entire work environment was transforming. One night, while closing together, Michael confessed that managing a company looking only at numbers is incomplete. It takes both strategy and humanity. Emily responded that she had discovered some bosses know how to recognize their mistakes and have the courage to change them. Michael understood that Emily had become the person who had saved his business soul, showing him that you can be successful while remaining human. 3 months after the Royal Palace's transformation, the results were surprising in ways Michael had never imagined. Not only had the restaurant's atmosphere completely changed, but the numbers were also improving significantly. Staff turnover had dropped 70%. Customer satisfaction was at historic highs. A united team had been created that worked with true passion. Michael had extended the revolution to the other restaurants in the chain as well, but the Royal Palace remained the main laboratory where new ideas were experimented with. And at the center of everything was always Emily, who had revealed herself not only as an excellent manager, but also as an inexhaustible source of innovative ideas. One of these ideas had particularly impacted Michael. Emily had proposed creating special evenings dedicated to staff stories. Once a month, some employees told their story to clients, creating a moment of authentic connection that went beyond simple restaurant service. The first evening of this type had seen Emily herself tell her story. With an emotional but firm voice, she had spoken of her grandmother, the sacrifice of leaving college, dreams postponed for love. Not an eye remained dry in the room, and many clients approached at the end of the evening to thank her personally. Michael, hidden at the back of the room, had felt a pride he hadn't experienced in years. Not the cold pride of financial success, but the warm pride of having contributed to creating something beautiful and meaningful. In the following months, Emily and Michael developed an increasingly close collaboration. She brought field experience and human sensitivity. He brought strategic vision and resources to realize projects. It was a perfect alchemy that was revolutionizing not only the restaurants, but the entire sector. One night, while working together on a new project to improve conditions for part-time employees, Michael realized something that surprised him. He wasn't just appreciating Emily's professional competencies, but was falling in love with the person she was. Intelligent, brave, authentic in an often false and superficial world, Emily, for her part, had seen Michael transform from the distant and feared CEO into a man who listened, learned, and above all sincerely cared about the well-being of people who worked for him. It was impossible not to feel attracted to this evolution, to this capacity to change and grow. The moment of truth came during one of those nights when they stayed alone closing the restaurant. They were talking about the company's future when Michael suddenly changed the subject, asking her what she dreamed for her personal future. Emily stopped, her hands on the glasses she was drying. She confessed that lately she had begun to dream again. For a long time she had only tried to survive, to make her grandmother survive, but now she felt she could think about the future again, seeing the possibility of continuing to make a difference, of helping other people as he had helped her. Michael then confessed that what had begun as a gesture of justice had transformed into something much deeper. She hadn't only changed his company, she had changed him as a man. He had fallen in love with her, not with the employee he had helped, but with the extraordinary woman he had come to know. The silence that followed was full of electricity. Emily looked at him with eyes shining with emotion, confessing in turn she had fallen in love with the man he had chosen to become, the man who had the courage to change. Their first kiss was sweet and full of promises. It wasn't just the love between a man and a woman, but the union of two people who had saved each other, who together had discovered that true success is built putting humanity at the center of everything. A year after that night, at the Royal Palace, Michael and Emily were celebrating something no one in the business world would have imagined possible: the first anniversary of the Harassing Revolution, as the specialized press had baptized it. The Harassing Group had become a case study in all American business schools. Profits increased 40%. Employees applied from across the country to work in their restaurants. Clients reserved months in advance, not only for the excellent food, but for the unique human experience each establishment offered. But the numbers, however impressive, weren't the most important thing for Michael. The most important thing sat beside him, Emily, who had become general manager of all the restaurants, and above all the woman of his life. Their wedding, celebrated 6 months before in a simple but emotional ceremony in the garden of the house where they now lived together, had been an event that united employees and clients, creating an extended family that went far beyond business boundaries. Grandmother Grace, completely cured thanks to the best treatments, had been Emily's matron of honor. During the reception, she had told everyone that her granddaughter hadn't only found love, but had also recovered herself, her dreams, her desire to change the world. Michael had understood that the greatest success of his life wasn't the $60 million in revenue, but the fact of waking up every morning beside a woman who loved him for the man he had become, not for what he possessed. That night they were inaugurating the 16th restaurant of the chain in Los Angeles, applying from day one all the principles of the Harassing philosophy: fair salaries, humane hours, respect for each employee, and above all the conviction that each person working in a company has a story that deserves to be heard and respected. During the inauguration speech, Michael looked at the room full of journalists, businessmen, and above all, employees of his restaurants who had come from across America. He told how he had started believing success was measured only in numbers, but had discovered, thanks to a brave girl who cried silently while serving champagne, that true success is measured in authentic smiles, in returned dignity, in dreams that become possible again. He turned toward Emily, who looked at him with eyes full of pride, explaining to the audience how she had taught him that a company isn't made of structures and balance sheets, but of people, and that when you treat people with respect and love, they return dedication and passion that no business consultant could ever teach. After the ceremony, while guests celebrated in the new restaurant, Michael and Emily found a moment alone on the terrace overlooking the Hollywood sign. Michael embraced her, reflecting on what they had built together. Not only a restaurant empire, but a new model of doing business that demonstrated how you can be successful while remaining human. Emily, resting her head on his shoulder, reminded him they had saved not only her life and her grandmother's, but also his soul. In doing so, they had created something that would change the lives of thousands of people who would come to work for them. Michael kissed her sweetly, knowing she was right. Their story had begun with a waitress's tears in a luxury restaurant, but had become an example of how love for people, for work, for life, can transform anything. Looking at the Los Angeles lights, turning on in the evening, Michael thought about how much his life had changed a year before. He was a successful but lonely CEO who knew his company only through numbers. Now he was a man in love and fulfilled who every day worked side by side with the woman he loved to build something beautiful and meaningful. The Harassing Group had become more than a restaurant chain. It had become a symbol that in the business world you can succeed while remaining human, that profit and compassion can coexist, that sometimes it's enough to have the courage to look into the eyes of those who work for you to discover that true success isn't measured in dollars, but in lives changed for the better. And it had all started with a waitress who cried silently while serving champagne to indifferent clients. A girl who had taught a millionaire what it really meant to be rich. Like if you believe true success is measured in lives changed for the better. Comment what moment of the story touched your heart most. Share to inspire those who believe you can succeed while being human. Subscribe for more stories of businessmen who have put love at the center of business. Sometimes it's enough to look. into the eyes of those who work for you to discover what really matters. Sometimes a stranger's tears can save your soul. And sometimes love is born when you least expect it, transforming everything into something greater. Because true power isn't dominating people, but elevating them toward their dreams.